Bienvenidos a un capítulo más de Diálogos Sensoriales. En esta ocasión tengo el enorme placer de entrevistar a uno de los personales o profesionales más destacados en el mundo sensorial, actualmente profesor asociado en la Universidad de California, Davis, dentro del Departamento de Ciencia y Tecnología de los Alimentos. Entonces, bueno, démosle la bienvenida a Julien Delarue. Julien, welcome and thank you so much for accepting this time to share your trajectory and in the sensory field.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
yeah, we have been trying to make this conversation happen for a while, and finally we are here, right?
Yeah.
So
Thank you for having me.
yeah, no, it's an honor. I want to ask how did you arrive into sensory evaluation, or how does one becomes a sensory scientist from your perspective, of course?
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, it's been a long story. So I will try to keep it short. So my background is as a food scientist. I was trained in agronomy in France. And I was very early, I was attracted. I mean, I always loved food and
Mhm.
eating. And I've always been attracted to, especially to sensory science, but more specifically to, flavor perception and, like flavors in general. Uh, and I had the feeling that it was important for me, to get a strong background in flavor chemistry. So that's how I started. So I kind of specialized in flavor chemistry before I actually did some sensory, although I was already interested in sensory science. So that's what I did during my education in France. And I did a first internship with Nestle. Back in the days in Switzerland, I worked on coffee flavor.
Hmm.
And one of the things I was asked to do at the time was to develop electronic notes. That's what they called
Wow.
it, which is like more like elect chemical sensors rather than an electronic notes. But the idea was interesting, and I learned a lot. I did a lot of analytical chemistry at the time, and then I continued to specialize. I did my master's on flavor chemistry, like analytical chemistry mostly. Did a lot of GCMS.
Okay.
And then I did my PhD, and that PhD, that's something we have which is great in France. It's called the CIF system. It's collaboration between the academia and industry. So the industry can sponsor PhD students. So I did that in collaboration with Yoplait.
Okay.
I believe you know the brand.
Yes.
Yeah, yogurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I worked on a strawberry flavor in yogurts. And so again, there was a lot of like a analytical chemistry component to understand what were the main components of the flavor. But there was obviously also a sensory component. So that's where I started drifting from the
All right.
chemistry, flavor chemistry, to the sensory perception and DA and rapid DA, descriptive analysis, I mean, and then consumer testing. And then I had the opportunity to join the academia. So that's when I started my career as a researcher and professor in France.
Mhm.
And I realized at this point that even though I was absolutely fascinated by the flavor chemistry, I was even more interested in the human side of perception. And I mean, to these days, I would say that what excites me or fascinates me the most is the human perception and human behaviors, and the fact that, people are different and perceive things differently, like different things. I love that. I love interacting with consumers when we run tests.
Right.
Yeah, so there's more like the psychological and sociological dimension of what we do is what I like the most, I would say.
Wow. Do you have like a mentor or a group of mentors who guide you through this timeline?
Yeah, sure. When I started, so my professor in sensory science was Jean-Marc Sifferman.
Mm.
So he was the one worked the most on rapid methods at the time. We've came up with this idea that we could do some flash profile. And then in the same group, we had like who were my supervisors, Professor Hubert Richard, who was the flavor chemist, and Professor Marc Danzard, who worked on modeling, like model data analysis and sociometrics side of sensory science. And I think that they are really like shaped the way I think about sensory science. And so that was for the initial, like the start of my career. And then when I became like first an assistant professor, I was extremely fortunate to collaborate with people like Eb Custer. And also have like, we did not have like formal collaboration, but I still consider them like as my mentors. I've had the opportunity to have like very extensive discussions with Peter Punter or Hal McPhee.
Right.
So I think I was very privileged to be able to work with these people. And also, you know, in France, there is a very strong network of sensory scientists. So, and people like Sylvie Sanchou, Pascal Chiche, and others, who helped me like, you know, think and debate about those ideas.
Exactly.
And then more recently, I moved to California and work at UC Davis, where I had the immense privilege to work with Hildegard Heyman, Professor Heyman. And so I think I was just lucky to meet these great people who helped me and mentored me.
Right. It's amazing how because you mentioned that you love sensory, and because some people or love it or hate it. So that's the best part of sensory,
Really?
right?
They hate it?
Yeah,
I
they
never
don't.
heard someone saying they hate sensory. I've heard, you know, people saying they don't trust sensory, which is a very
Okay,
interesting topic.
that's what I meant, and we will arrive into that later.
Mhm.
So please start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, now that you have this experience in the research field with both France and the US, do you feel like we taste differently depending on where we are, or are our senses are or have a universal way of thinking?
You mean from my personal experience
From a
working in
consumer, I
different
mean,
countries?
yeah, of course, of course. In your
Yeah,
experience working
well,
with that.
first of all, I think we perceive things differently, like from one person to another,
Mhm.
from one context to another. That's part of my research.
All right.
Um, but I think it's more like maybe not just about the perception, like I don't think our senses work differently from one place to another, but the way we interpret the signal that comes from our senses
Mhm.
definitely is shaped by context. And it doesn't mean like from one country to another. It could be just from one place to another, or the people we are with, or like the food that you're eating. So like I think people underestimate how much like the top-down processes, the cognitive processes affect the perception, because we pay attention to different things in our food. Yeah, some people would pay more attention to texture or to flavor.
Mhm.
So it's extremely complex. And so the answer, like generally speaking, in terms of like the scientific answer to your question is yes, I believe that we perceive things differently in different contexts. And as for my personal experience, I think that moving from one place to another where the food is different, but also like the habits are different.
Right.
It's like I'm lucky that I live in California where I can access like very good quality, good quality products most of the time,
Right.
like good fruits and vegetables still. But what struck me the most when I moved in here was the different habits. Like in France, uh, the lunch break is sacred,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
we'll almost always will take an hour to, you know, for the lunch break. Sometimes we don't have time, but it's like people will go for lunch together, take that time, and it's very important, right? And I don't have that here, and that's
Hmm.
probably the part of like in terms of cultural change and eating habits that I miss the most from France.
Right. So it's important that I mean the context, and as you mentioned, and of course having that let's say, human interaction, not only inside the lab, but while you are eating or drinking, whatever. That's
Yeah,
something important in a collaboration group of people, I guess.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have done an amazing work with immersion rooms. Um, some people ask okay, people know they are inside a lab wearing a VR googles. Um, how is the brain working into that? Is really a way to have to collect data actually, or we are in the way to have a potential nice data?
Okay. That's super interesting question. I think that if you want to try to recreate the real world and pretend that uh, when you have participants for tests and you put them like goggles on or you place them in an immersive room that they are it's the place where they're supposed to be.
Right.
I think you're wrong or you're mistaken when you try that. Like people are not fooled. They know they are, like you said, they know they are still in the lab.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that with the headset, it's probably even worse. Like they know they have something
Right.
on their head. It's heavy. I mean, that's also one of the reasons why I don't use headsets so much. So I tend to favor immersive rooms. But what's interesting, and that's something we notice when we run tests, is that
Mhm.
people buy it. Like they know they are in the lab, but they recall their memories. And I think that's the important part,
Mhm.
right? When you ask someone, like, think about the last time you were having dinner, they could think about their memory. But then when we show them a place, they instantly project themselves. They say, oh yeah, wow, that's a nice place. And this is what I would do in this place. And so I think it really helps people associating places to their experience with a product, right? And I think that's very important. That's what we see, at least in our data, in our results, that the response to different food is or drinks is different depending on the places that we display in the
Mhm.
immersive room in my lab. And I think that also something that is interesting is that, for about 10 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, there's been a lot of research on whether, what we do in the lab is predictive of what happens in real life, right? So it's like lab tests versus home use tests and things like that. So that's obviously the first question that people have asked, like, can we use these digital technologies to be closer to real life? And the answer is, like, generally speaking, yes. Um, but I think that's the first stage.
Mhm.
Now, what I do is more like trying to see if we have different responses depending on different places that we present,
Right.
right? So, and that's something you cannot really do experimentally. Like organizing a test at home or in a restaurant is easy. I mean, it's doable,
Mhm.
but organizing a test on the beach and then a test in the forest and then a test in the picnic area and then in a restaurant and then in a 3-star Michelin restaurant and then you
Yes.
multiply in the context. That's almost impossible to do in real life. Maybe if you have infinite resources, you can do it. But then you have to go to these places, and
Mhm.
you cannot really send the same people to different places.
Right.
Whereas with the immersive room, you can do it. You can have the same people in the same location, and then but you're evoke different places, different contexts, and because of that, different behavior. So I think that's one of the advantages of these kind of settings.
Mhm.
And I think in the future, we'll see more people using this type of approach in this way to kind of screen different contexts and see how people to react to the same food, but in different places.
Right. It's like a start, right? In the sense of because we cannot have all those research fields into those different places. We can work with that and then make an approach. But if we find something interesting, we can go into deep, I think like in rapid methods, for example. No? It's
Yeah,
it's a start. It's a good
yeah,
beginning, I guess.
I agree. I agree. I think that and it's interesting that you're mentioning rapid methods. Um, when people think about sensory science or descriptive analysis, they immediately think about panels that need, months to be trained.
Hmm.
And so because of that, many people don't do any sensory. It's not that they don't like it, but they're like, okay, it will take me too much time and I don't have that time, or I don't have the trained panel. So why don't we start with something rapid? Even if we know it's not perfect, but at least we have some information. And
Yes.
you're right. I agree. I think that, what we do here in the lab, it's not going to the real place, but it gives us very valuable information,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, and of course you have been working with rapid methods a lot, and you also mentioned that the industry is in a hurry. They want to save cost. That they don't want to pay an external panel,
Mhm.
whatever. When should we definitely stop or slowing down and going back into traditional analysis if we are using rapid methods nowadays, for example,
Mhm.
if there is a way?
Oh yeah, totally. I think again, um, there's been different phases in my career. Like when I started working with Jean-Marc in France on Flash Profile and rapid methods, at that point I was like, forget about the descriptive analysis. We should all do the rapid methods. But then I matured a little. And now I'm going back to descriptive analysis, not always, but I recognize that there are many situations in which like conventional descriptive analysis with a trained panel is the best option. And I think that's really what you see in the industry is that people are a bit lost. Because there are like many people in the industry, the sensory professionals, they have been trained, in the old way, like our old-fashioned way with the standards, like this descriptive analysis, the tests should be done this way and this way.
Mhm.
But when you look at all the methods that are available, it's huge. There
Right.
are like maybe dozens of different rapid methods. There are different ways to do this, even like conventional descriptive analysis. You could do it in different ways.
Right.
And the same for difference testing, the same for consumer testing. The problem is that it's becoming very complicated, and some people don't have the knowledge. I don't know all the methods, and I
Right.
teach. I've been teaching for more than 20 years, but I don't
Okay.
know the details of all the methods. So it's becoming challenging. But the good news is that these methods, they address different needs and different constraints.
Right.
So depending on your situation, there's no one good solution. So you cannot say in the industry, like, let's apply descriptive analysis for everything, or let's apply kata tests for everything. It's not the way it works. It's like, and I like to make an analogy because my background was more in the analytical chemistry. Imagine you want to run a test. You can do a very fancy HPLC analysis of your product, or
Mhm.
you could just like do titratable acidity or measure the pH. And there's no one that is better than the other.
Right.
One is definitely more expensive than the other, but it depends on what you need. If you just
Exactly.
need the pH, you don't
Mhm.
need to do the HPLC, right? Sometimes you do, and it's very valuable. You need it. You have also you have the resources to do that.
Mhm.
So I think that, and people in the industry need to realize that, like sometimes they need the descriptive analysis. They need to train a panel. Otherwise they won't have the information that they need to do their product development, whatever. But sometimes they also like to have a quick answer about their prototypes. They're working on different recipes. And if they do that with a rapid test, they have like in maybe a week or less than that, they have their immediate answer and that's enough. But that might be enough on the long term.
Right.
Once they have that information, maybe they like, okay, so now that we have a better understanding of what we are looking at, we need to step up and do the descriptive analysis, the hardware. So I think that people need to be smarter in the way they apply sensory science in their life.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. It's like stand a little bit and then think about the objective, the context, and what is the information needed for. So in that case, as you mentioned, if I need just a quick answer, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. But if I need to optimize a product or maybe project a new prototype or whatever,
yeah,
it's
absolutely. And people make mistakes because of that, because they're, for example, if you use kata or there are some methods or free sorting, these two methods are perfectly fine. But if you translate or try to use this data to make assumptions about the difference in intensities between products, you might be mistaken, and you might make wrong decisions because you had not the data that you think you have in the first place.
Totally agree. Yeah, I have seen that after a congress, a company knows some rapid methods and they wanted to apply it, and that was the case. They want to, with this correspondence analysis, make some intensity relationships, and it was like, calm down, let's think a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And there's like a common set of critique out there. Like people say always that sensory science is too subjective because today I love coffee, but tomorrow no. In your opinion, how do you find this consistency in something like our human preference, like which is messy?
It's like, for me, I understand these criticisms. It's funny that like, when people say like sensory science is too subjective. I agree. I mean, it is subjective. That's the point. If it weren't subjective, then we don't need sensory science. Like sensory science is the goal. I think really the goal of sensory science is to measure subjectivity, the subjective experience.
Right.
So for me, it's not like too subjective. It is subjective. That's exactly what we do. And that is challenging, yes. But we need to acknowledge the fact that it is subjective, and that's our main goal is to measure subjectivity. But the next reaction is that some people say it's too subjective, so we'd rather not do it. I think that's a real mistake. It's like, you don't like the temperature, hide the thermometer. Or break the thermometer. Right. That's when it becomes stupid. It's like, it's like people don't like the same thing, and also we don't want this measure. So it's just like, I don't want to see this.
Right.
For me, that's really stupid.
Yeah, it's important to embrace that part of subjectivity in order to solve it or get an answer, a consistent answer in some way.
Yeah. Like what you see very frequently, and that's my experience working in the industry or with collaborating with people in the industry, you have, on one hand, you have people doing like very good sensory work and they have a trained panel. It takes months to get the results. And then you have like other people in the industry, like maybe the boss, the CEO, or like people in marketing, and they can also taste the product. And they say like, your panel is wrong. Like, this is what I taste. and it's very challenging. It's very hard to prove them like, no, my panel is better. And sometimes it's not. It's not here to judge, right? But it's like, you have to accept it. If you're, instead of saying like, my panel is like replicable, it's better than what you're smelling or tasting, you could say like, okay, everybody has a different taste, but this is on average what people taste. And then some people would taste it differently because they have different receptors, and maybe you're part of these people, and that makes you unique. But we still need to make decisions as a company and see who are the larger number of people, what is the dispersion, right. Then you can more easily convince people that we're here to make decisions, we're using the sensory data to help these decisions. But we also always must keep in mind that people don't perceive exactly the same things.
Yeah.
And obviously they don't like the same things, right? So I think that's the kind of things that need to be, you want to be very careful when you communicate sensory data, especially in the industry.
Yeah. Which do you think is the most critical part of this, of a project of sensory? Thinking since the very conception of it, taking the samples or interpreting the results, which one is the critical?
I think it's the general misconception, or like the way people usually view sensory science is really harming us, like sensory sciences, because most people tend to think that sensory science is, or sensory evaluation should be the thing that you do at the end of a project, right? So your people, they work on a research project or they develop a product and they say, oh, well, you know what? At the end of the project, when we have our nice product, we want to evaluate it with people. But what's the point? I mean, it's usually too late. What do you do when you do that? Like, how do you use this information? And it would be much more useful if you start the project, you say, okay, we want to create a new product. And let's start with asking people, like interviewing people about the prototypes or even their ideas. So you start as early as possible with sensory and with consumer research. Then you develop your stuff, and then the sensory component can be repeated along the way, and you give guidance to the project. That's much more efficient. But to be able to do that, you need the right methods, and you need also to be responsive. Like if it takes 2 months to get the results, forget about it. Nobody would use them.
Right.
So I
Unless
think
you
that's
are,
the critical part.
yeah. Okay. Understood. I agree. Perfect. Okay, Julian, let's take a quick break from the deep theory and let's move to two EFC questions for you. You need
Okay.
to pick one. City or forest?
Say that again.
City or forest? Like being in the campaign or,
Forest.
yeah, which one?
Which forest?
No, no, no. If you prefer city, a city, whatever
Yeah.
in
Oh,
general.
forest.
Yeah,
That's my answer. Yeah. I would
nice.
say forest.
Okay. Red wine or white wine?
Good question. White wine.
Tetra testing or triangle test?
Triangle test. Do you know what I'm laughing?
No, no, go
Because
ahead.
I'm doing like a huge study with tetrad, but I
Okay.
still like, I don't know, spontaneously, I would say triangle.
Okay. Well, this is, I think, difficult. Traditional descriptive analysis or rapid methods?
Both. I cannot choose. It has to be both, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Data cleaning or data analysis?
Ooh, data cleaning or data, yeah, um, tidying. Not so
Right.
much clean because clean. I don't know. Can I comment
Please, please,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
if you wanted.
I think data cleaning sounds like a bit like you're removing dummy data or things that you don't like in your data. So I
Mhm.
don't really like that.
Right.
But data like structuring or tidying your data is very, very important. I think that it's more challenging and perhaps even more decisive than the analysis itself.
Right. Yeah. If
It's
you
in
have
my
like
opinion.
a really weird data, your results are like
Yeah,
strange.
yeah.
Okay. R or Python?
R,
Analytical or consumer testing?
consumer testing.
Meat or fish?
Fish,
Parametric or non-parametric statistics?
parametric.
Teaching or researching?
Good question. Uh, um, I don't know. Maybe teaching. I started my career. I joined the academia because of the research component. That's what I was more interested in. But the older I get, and I guess the more I like teaching.
Okay.
So now I think I probably enjoy teaching even more than research. I love research, but I truly love teaching as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Uh, preference mapping, sorry, preference mapping or PLS?
So preference mapping.
Paper book or PDF documents like Kindle?
Ooh. Uh, I still have like some particular affection for paper, but I use PDF too.
Okay. P-value or confidence intervals?
Uh-huh. Confidence intervals.
And the final question is bread or cheese?
Bread.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was going to be difficult because
You
a
know
mix.
what? Coming back to one of the of early discussion today, one of the things I miss the most here in the US
Ah,
is good bread.
wow.
And like I can find some reasonably good cheese. Some of it is imported from France or European countries. But bread is like the everyday food, staple food that is I miss the most. Yeah. So when I can find like good baguette, this
Right.
is what I
Nice.
what I love.
Yeah, that's the foodie part. I guess you are more like confidence in
Mm.
your life. Okay.
So what do my answers tell you about me?
No, it's interesting because people still work with traditional descriptive analysis, for instance, is more like the trend is more like red winers. And of course, up to now, nobody has told me I'm a vegan, for example. And and people they look for parametric statistics in that sense. So it's more like let's take our time to do things,
Hmm.
not so
Hmm.
in a hurry, just like that.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Let's thank you for your answers. Let's move now to the final part of the interview.
Hmm.
And let's start speaking about the future, looking at this big picture. Um, can you imagine the food of the future? And which sensory characteristics do you think it will have, satisfying both our planet and the palate?
Um, I think that's the main or one of the main challenges like nowadays is to have food that is that people really enjoy, that is yeah, good or not too bad, let's say, for the planet, and that is healthy. I would add the healthiness component to your question. Um, and I think that I don't know if we realize that, like as food scientists, but it or even sensory scientists, but it completely changes the stakes. I mean, like the goal of making our food healthy and sustainable is not really new, but
Mhm.
it makes I think it makes sensory sense even more important, right? In the
Right.
process of developing new food or conducting research in food science. I think the human part of it is even more important and more challenging, but also even more important.
Mhm.
So my answer to this, and it's not really an answer, but it's first that I think like yeah, the role of sensory sense is becoming or should be even more like at the center of all this. Um, I think that in the future, if we talk about the food of the future,
Mhm.
there are like another component and or challenge, which will be to have food accessible
Okay.
to the most people, right? So you want not just good food for the elite, but you want good food for everybody as much as possible. And I think that's a challenge also because you want to make the food affordable and it's not just like crappy food for poor people and the elite can afford like very excellent food. And now in terms of sensory properties, I think that's also, I cannot predict that, but what I can say is that people are like, we are biologically attracted to carbs, carbohydrates, sugar, fat, and salt. That's, like in how our metabolism works.
Right.
But we can learn to enjoy things that are more subtle. And so I think it's like almost an education, a sensory education. So I think we could try or help food scientists to make better food, but we can
Mhm.
also perhaps or hopefully try to help people to enjoy more subtle sensory properties.
Right.
And the culture of your study is an important part of that. But I mean, I might be like too idealistic, but I believe in this. Yeah. And enjoying food is also something important. We don't just eat because to get fed and satiated. We
Right.
must enjoy it. And coming back to my comments about like having a real lunch break is important, right? So being with others, like the cultural component, the social component of it is critical. So I think it's important that we don't forget about that.
Mhm.
That's part of what people like. But of course, yeah, you can imagine like the dream of a product developer is to make like very fancy food, exquisite with that's like superfood. It has the best
Yeah.
nutritional properties and it's extremely sustainable. Great, I think we can do it, but will also be probably very expensive.
Right. Or some package that if they don't hear like a conversation, they will not open, for example. That will be an
Yeah.
interesting option. Okay. What is the biggest change in the sensory field since, let's say, since your first test and nowadays, compared with nowadays, which is the biggest change that the area had?
I think the biggest change is how people see consumer science or sensory science. It's a
Mhm.
good lapsus. Um, I think that when I started, like really there was still this idea that when you can train a panel to have a consensus and like you could calibrate people in a way, and that was still like the general idea, more or less. And I think that nowadays people think more about sensory science in terms of trying to capture what people perceive with the
Mhm.
acknowledgement that people are different.
Right.
So I think there's been a shift from describing or trying to sensory science as a way to measure the product, the properties of the product, to now we are trying to measure what people perceive,
Right.
how people perceive the product. And it's a complete change of paradigm, right? And I think for me, that's the main evolution that I've seen in my career. Yeah.
Great. Understood. Um, what will be the let's say the toolkit for the people who is starting in the sensometric area? I mean, what are the skills they need to work in the sensometric area? Do you have some advice for them?
Yeah. I think, learning um, how to analyze your data with R is very, very useful. I realize that the barrier is really, it's a bit high because it's not very friendly to code in
Mhm.
R. But once you get used to it, but it's not that complicated either. So, but once you pass that barrier, it gives you access to immense potential that you don't get with like other like software that you pay for.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think that that's an important thing. But you need, and also like when you're coding, you have to understand the analysis that you're doing more than when you just like open the software and click on that button.
Right.
So I think it helps a little bit. That being said, so I would say that the statistical background, like of course, like knowing about like the what is an analysis of variance, what is a multivariate analysis, that's very useful. I would say that nowadays we deal more with multi-block analysis.
Mhm.
And that goes with the change of paradigm, like because we're interested in people and the way different people perceive things differently, we need to have more sophisticated methods. Or because we want to have or develop food that is delicious and I don't know, nutritious and sustainable, we also have like different blocks of data. So for
Mhm.
all these reasons, like being more proficient in multi-block, not just multivariate,
Mhm.
but multi-block analysis is something very useful if you want to reach a high level of sensory science.
Mhm.
With that being said, maybe in 3 months from now, what I'm just saying is completely outdated because of AI.
Right.
And it's already changing, right? Like I see my students, they don't care. Like they just ask AI, like how to do this type of analysis. And AI gives a solution that most of the time is not too bad. Sometimes it's completely wrong.
Right.
So that's where they need to understand the data and what they're trying to achieve. But like the nitty-gritties of, the details of the method,
Mhm.
uh, I don't know if I should be saying this way, but I'm afraid that you might not even need it in the future. You need to understand the concepts for sure.
Right.
But yeah, the details, you might just leave that to AI.
Do you think the AI will replace the sensory scientist?
That's a very good question. Usually I get the question, do you think that AI will replace sensory panels? Which I think is a stupid question, but you're
Yeah.
not asking that.
Nope.
Um, um, I don't think so, not on the short term. Um, and the one reason for that is that sensory science, I mean, every case is special. You need a deep understanding of the human part. Like the product part, maybe the method to some extent could be like delegated to AI, but you need sensory scientists to analyze, to design, and
Right.
with an understanding of what's at stake. Um, because we deal with human people, I think it's hard to be completely replaced to by AI, even in a longer perspective. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure about that. We'll see.
Yeah, well, let's see. I think we need to work with it, but some sort of embrace it. That it's something that we have. It's a tool for now. We need to complement our research or our profession with that.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
must.
it's definitely changing the way we work.
Yes.
It's like making us probably much more efficient for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it will replace us, like sensory scientists.
Yeah. It also need the new input, the new trends or the new research and etc. So it's not like it needs something or somebody who complete the information for the next six
Right.
months or the next week or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Is there a specific book or paper poster that changed your life or you want to share with the people who is listening at this interview? Like, okay, you must need or buy this book or read this if you want to get a complete scope of this sensory field, for example. Which book do you
The
recommend?
best thing I can do is to show you the books.
Okay, nice.
So hold
Okay, okay.
on. All right. So for me, that's Professor Lawless and Professor
Right.
Heyman's book, right? That's the absolute reference. That's the best book, the most comprehensive book that you can read. Like, and that's usually the one I recommend to students or people who are like they've never heard or very little about sensory science and they want to know the basics. This is
Yeah.
the absolute reference. Um, then I would say that, well, of course, there's my own like very modest contribution
Nice.
on rapid methods. So if people are interested,
Yes.
so this is the second edition already, and I'm kind of proud about this one because like we have many contributors and writers who present the different methods, uh, but I wouldn't start with it. Unless you're already like proficient in sensory science, because otherwise you might get lost
Right.
very easily. And then there are many other books. Right now, as I would say that generally speaking, there are books that are super interesting, but outside our field about consumer psychology or even economics that would be very valuable. So if there are any like students, like graduate students in sensory science who will listen
Mhm.
to this at some point, I think that one recommendation would be to also be curious and see outside of sensory science
Right.
and what we can learn from them.
Definitely.
I don't know. We'll have to find, but I can give the reference later
Yes,
or some
please.
very good books in experimental economics, for example, that are very, very valuable. Uh, Of course, there are other books on consumer research. There's this one, like this one. I think there's a new edition coming up from
Yeah.
Paola and Gaston, which is
Yes.
also a very good one on more on the consumer side of the field. Uh, yeah, that's my recommendations. And of course, there's another book, but I don't know if I have it here. Um, yeah, I'm not sure I have it here. It might be at home on the book we wrote with Thierry Walsh
Okay.
and Vanessa and John on R and data science and sensory science. I think this one is also very useful. I mean, people who've like that's the feedback I get from students or people who are using it. I think we managed to make it like easy and an easy access to R and sensometrics.
Right. If you allow me, I can put your book on the description of the
Yeah.
video, and if you can
Okay.
share me
Yeah.
those economics,
Yeah.
I would really appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Finally, Julian, a
Yeah.
bit of a personal question. Let's say we have a time machine. Would you prefer to go back in the past or go into the future?
Uh,
There's
I
a
think
following question after that.
okay. I think I try to not have regrets or like I would like to go in the past to see how it was like just for the fun, but I would be more excited about the future. Although the future doesn't look great, so I'm not sure I want to see the future. I'm usually very more like an optimistic person, but hopefully the future won't be that bad. But
So
yeah.
the past will be. So let's say you can meet the young Julian, the one who didn't even know sensory science exists at that moment. What would you tell to him?
Um, well, first of all, believe in yourself. Um, be curious. Um, this field is great. Um, there's a lot to learn, a lot, much more than you can imagine. uh, cultivate like the good relationships with the people you will meet in the field or outside the field. Like you learn so much from others. And one of the things I would say, like to the slightly older Julian, is like write the damn papers. Like don't wait for years before you write the articles on your research. That's maybe the one regret I have. Like there's so many, I know I'm not alone in this situation, but like there are so many experiments and pieces of research that I've never published and and that was still very valuable. So
Nice. And maybe also grab that recipe of baguette from your family just to have it there in some place.
yeah.
Yolanda, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your passion with us today. Anything else you would like to add?
No, I don't know. I think we've covered a lot. I mean, that was fun. I really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, and hope to see you in the short future. If not, maybe at Pangborn in Merida. So we will be
Absolutely.
there, and I
Yeah.
can suggest you some nice bread from Mexico.
Awesome. I'm looking
Ok,
forward to it.
ya, thank you so much. A ustedes muchas gracias por vernos. Si les gustó, denle like al video y si no, simplemente no digan nada. Nos vemos en la siguiente ocasión en Diálogos Sensoriales. Thank you, Julian. Bye bye.
Thank you.